Hey guys, it's Jimmy Bremner and Dexter, the boy, CTOA Urban Trail, and number 4 on our map and compass. Happy Independence Day to my American friends. Happy 4th of July. Just finished our Canada Day. It's a great weekend for everybody. So get out there and have some fun. So like I say, we're at number 4 on our map and compass. Pretty hot here on the Urban Trail and the 416 over the next few days. Make sure you've got your water with you. Remember, you need a liter, between a liter, 10 to 12, depending on what you're doing on a hot day like this. Like I said, you can try the trick with colored tape on a water bottle or different colored power drinks, Powerades, that type of thing. And you take so much in this amount of time, and if you haven't changed colors, it means that you need to drink more. As I said, for me, the Powerades and things like that, for me, they're too salty, so I thin them out with water. Okay, now that said, map and compass. Hopefully, you've got to make some pace beads. You did your pace over 100 meters. You counted that out. You either have a piece of paracord you're tying knots in, or you made some pace beads. You have learned how to draw a small little map, with your baseline, where you start from, your base camp, baseline, where you start from. You have a handrail that guides you. Could be streetcar tracks, could be train tracks, it could be a road, it could be a power line, but it's something that you can hang on to get you to your fence line, okay? And your fence line is that barrier, imaginary barrier. Again, it can be a road or a significant landmark that you can recognize, and that's where you stop. We talked about aiming off a little bit, and again, that gets more to when we put the compass on the map. So I said it would be 4 or 5, and it looks like it's going to be 5 installments of this. So what kind of compass can I should I get? And what about my phone? My phone has a GPS in it, and it has Google Maps, and it has Waze, and it has TomTom, and it has all these different applications in there. I have to be honest with you, I have absolutely no luck with these types of applications, and especially if you're walking, okay? And it seems to be more problematic in an urban center. Like when I'm traveling and I try to use that, it's very difficult. It seems to send me in circles. I don't know if it's because it can't get the connection with the satellite because of the built-up area, but I really don't have a lot of luck with the GPS in a phone. Now, I always carry a compass, and I'll explain why. Because when I try to use Google Maps, it'll say turn north. Well, that's good if you know where if you're familiar with the city in Toronto, the lakes to the south, I know where the north is. It's pretty easy for me. But if I'm not there, I've got to determine which direction north is. So I always have some type of compass with me. Now, this watch. So any analog watch, okay, and that's the watch with the dial on it, you can use as a very basic direction finder. And what you do is you take the hour hand, okay, and you point it towards the sun. So right now, it's about 3 o'clock where I am, 3 p.m. where I am right now, and I have the hour hand pointed at the sun. Okay, halfway between the hour hand and the 12 o'clock is your south-north line. It indicates south first, okay? It's pointing to the south. Backside of that, obviously, is north. But just remember that, because it's easy to get confused just by the way we use language. You know, we always say north, south, east, west, or south. We start with north, but it points to the south in the northern hemisphere. All right, and you know, there's a tiny on this watch. It has a tiny little button compass on it. You know, how accurate is that? Not so sure. Then you have a button compass because it looks like a button. And these are good for general direction. When you're getting a button compass, you can get them at dollar store, Dollar General. To pick a good one, you get a nail, okay? You set it flat and move the nail around, and the north indicator will move as you move the nail. When you move the nail away, if the north indicator sticks, it stays where it is and it doesn't go back to magnetic north, that's not a very good button compass, or any compass for that matter. So, button compass. Again, good for general direction, over traveling, map and compass. If you're familiar with all that, you can kind of get by, but again, very rudimentary, but really great thing to have. Next one up from there would be this small compass that I carry that we've showed you before. All right, and this is just basically a very basic mapping compass. And what I can do with this particular compass is I can plot a route on a map and what's important, and I know you can't see it, is that your compass has a grid reference marker on it. So when you place this on the map and you move this to the grid reference marks in line with the grid on your map, that gives you your bearing for you to walk on to your first waypoint. So I mentioned waypoint. So you need to have a way to record, when you're moving about and you're doing some map and compass, you're trying to get from one place to another. You want to be able to record your pace count, the time it takes you from A to B. Writing down, like again, a very rudimentary map. Some of you said, well, your map looks like a range card. Yeah, it does, because essentially that's what it is, okay? And a range card is basically, you look at the terrain from left to right arc, okay? You pick out specific buildings, land features, and you either use a range fire or you do a range estimation and say, building center of the arc, 150 meters, vehicle, right of the arc, right, 350 meters, and you write that down and you plot it out, and that's basically what a range card is. Now, writing the rain, pads are really good, and a pencil is probably better than a pen because the pen runs out of ink. Not much you can do there, so a pencil is probably better. Both is not a bad idea. A big pen is pretty great thing to have. Works all the time, as their lighters do, but I can remove the refill here, and I can use that as a straw or to, again, assist me with lighting an ember into flame to start a fire. So multi-purpose. So I'm going to cover off another type of compass that some of you will not be familiar with it. Okay? It's called a lensatic compass. Okay? And these are typically an American military compass. And a good one is made by a company called, and if I'm not pronouncing it correctly, correct me if I'm wrong, Kamenga is the go-to for the U.S. military. And what's interesting about a lensatic compass, it's not liquid dampened, okay? When you close it, okay, this handle locks out your north-south needle, all right? So it can't get damaged, it can't leak, fluid. and that's what makes it a bit different. Also, it has indicators in mils, and 6,400 mils and 360 degrees, and so the way you use it is a bit different, in that you actually hold it up to your cheek and you aim it. Again, I know you probably can't see that, but there is a rear and a front sighting line, and you aim that, and then you look through the lens. When you look through the lens, it will indicate how many degrees or how many mils that you have to, that's your bearing, okay, basically. And when you pick a bearing, you pick something that you recognize, like a big tree, something that is very obvious, right? You get that bearing, you write your bearing down, and your back bearing, you either add or subtract 180 degrees. Okay, and I'll cover that again in a second. So that's how I'm picking my bearing. I'm shooting that bearing, okay, and I record my back bearing, and I move towards that on my pace count with my beads, pulling a bead down, tying a knot, and that indicates, how much ground I've covered. So again, they're quite different. One really nice thing that the lens-edit compass has, it has a really nice graduated ruler on the edge, and so you can draw really accurate lines with it. Of course, a protractor is better and more accurate because it's clear and it lays over your map. And again, like the measurements on the protractor, the angles, everything is just more accurate and easier to get into the house, up the stairs to the grid box you want to work in, and then move within it because the roamers and everything are on your protractor. Okay. Then we have my Silva compass, okay, and Sun 2 is a really great compass as well. The Sun 2 actually has a magnifying glass on it, and what's great about that is as I get older, my eyes are not so good. It helps me read small, fine print. As well, I can use it as a fire starting resource, and to look for, ticks, first aid situation, I can use it for that. So when you look at a Silva, it has a mirror on the top. The mirror is good for signaling. It's also good for, self-aid, hygiene. You can look around and, check yourself out, make sure you're okay. It has a base plate, and I know it's hard to see, but you can see the marks on it. So those are my measurements. Those are my roamers to get me into my grid, and then within that grid box. This is also luminous, so I can move at night. And basically the trick of a compass is, again, I know hopefully you can see this, but we call it red in the bed. So the red part of the needle indicating north, you keep the red in the bed, and you move. My American friends, you call it the dog in the doghouse. That's cool. That's cool. And that gives me my bearing, and I march on that to my first waypoint, and then I move. And as I said, on if you can see it, I actually, my last little adventure, I've indicated all of my bearings, my waypoints, my back bearings, and the timing it took for that journey. Weather's indicated on it, and things. It's much like your dope book if you're a precision marksman or something like that. It's just data on previous, engagement, or whatever you want to call that, outing, but it's just, that's what it is. And then, I can take that. The advantage of this is I can take that and I can tape it into my message pad, and I have that if I want to reference back to it. Now, the great thing about this is there's actually an incline meter in it. So it's an arrow that indicates the incline, so I can record that, and I can adjust the declination. Typically, this has a lanyard on it, and there's a small tool that you use To adjust the declination on the back, you're either adding or subtracting. So I just use your eyeglasses screwdriver off my Swiss Army, and I can adjust that plus or minus depending on what's indicated on the map. As I said, I read an article recently that magnetic north is lined up with true north. How true that is, I'll have to let you check that out yourself. So what will happen in our next map and compass is we'll take the map, we'll put the compass on the map, we'll plot a bearing, we'll show you, how that works. Maybe do like a triangle type of thing. So we move out, we move up, we move back, and we get back to we'll establish our baseline, our handrails, our fence line, and it'll bring us back to base over a given period, estimated time of the journey based on my pace count. And that's what we'll do. Dedicated GPS is like a Garmin. I have a couple of those. They're quite old at this point, probably 20, 21 years old, but they're still pretty good. The ones I have, again, they're antiquated now. They're great if you're traveling in groups because you can see each other on the screen moving towards each other or away from each other. You can plot your waypoints on it. It gives you weather. They do a number of things, and there is a handheld radio built into the two particular ones that I have. So you can communicate over a couple of kilometers with them, and it's a good tool. Technology's come a long way in 20 years. So the ones I have, there's an interface with it, and you have to download the maps where you happen to be going. But there is a general North American map on it, and it'll give you some basic areas. You can zoom in, zoom out. The ones I have are in black and white, but it works for me. It's not as cluttered. Sometimes there's too much information. So again, that's our number 4 on Map and Compass. It's Jimmy Bremner and Dexter. Come here, buddy. Come here. And Dexter. Dexter Cam is coming. Jimmy Bremner, Dexter, CTOA, Urban Trail, and I'm out.